Hey everybody, this is Matt Ackley from Ritchie Brothers, and today I'm joined by Brian Glenn, our Senior Vice President for Canada, and Ben Goodyear, and we're going to talk about the recent Edmonton auction this year. You know, as everybody knows, we had to push this one back a little bit and change our strategy here based on the current COVID situation. But at the same time, we had some I think really amazing results here, and we wanted to share them with you. And so we've asked Brian to come on and give us a little insight into, hey, what happened? What did we see? What did it look like on a sector basis? So Brian, tell us. I mean, this is the granddaddy of them all. This is the big one every year. Tell us what, give us a little insight into, holy crap, we've got to move this one online. We've never sold this much equipment online before. Tell me, tell everybody out there what that was like, what the feeling was leading up to the auction.
Yeah, you bet, Matt. I don't know. In all honesty, it was crazy. And when I say crazy, it was so unexpected. The shift and the pivot that we had to make is not just a site such as Edmonton, which is used to conducting big events, but when COVID hit, we were not quite done baking the cake, so to speak. When we talk about building an auction sale, I like to say we mix the ingredients in a pot, and we put all the ingredients in the oven, start baking it. We weren't quite done as far as building the event. We had a quick 6-week turnaround from the February auction in Edmonton, leading up to what we call this big spring event, which is typically held the end of April. So the week of the 29th is when the sale was scheduled to happen, when COVID kicked in, and we as an organization globally had to start making shifts in our auction calendar. I guess the one blessing we had, or the Edmonton crew had, was we had a lot of good learnings from other parts of the country and other parts of the continent, following the lead of some of the U.S. industrial sales, and certainly the pivot and the shift that the ag group went through in Western Canada in particular, where they converted all their on-the-farm events to online TAL-only auctions. I mean, in auction-savvy Western Canada, this is a huge mind shift for a lot of people who are very auction-savvy and just they're used to going and kicking the tires, so to speak. So in that regard, it was a bit of a mind shift right away. We actually delayed the sale a couple of weeks, which created its own set of somewhat different circumstances, because in Western Canada in particular, we sell a lot of real estate by auction. Most of that is obviously underwritten, and in this case, we had a lot of straight commission business as well. So we had a group of owners that had literally put their life savings, whether it was their home or recreation property or their business property, had listed it for this sale, and we've been advertising some of that real estate for up to 6 months. So the decision we made at that time was, although we were moving the auction sale, there was so much heavily invested in the real estate portion of the sale, we still ran online only the real estate portion on the 29th of April. And then we moved the live event for the asset-based auction to the second week in May. So, I mean, the team pivoted quickly. But what, really shocked us, both on the real estate day and then the following 2 weeks when we had the 5-day event, was just simply the sheer volume of turnout, the watch listers and the hits we were having per day. I mean, it was like watching a ticker tape parade. It was crazy as the clock kept ticking. And we were able to at least show a lot of the owners that had committed early that there are people out there paying attention, and they will come on sale day. But boy, oh boy, when the week started for the week of the 5-day sale, we never expected the kind of turnout we received. It was crazy.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. I think in the annual one-upsmanship between that little sale south of the border. Talk about that registration record.
Yeah, well, there's always a little bit of internal competition, and no doubt Orlando does set the tone for the organization, and certainly for buyers across Canada, they do look to the large Orlando event we have every February. And yes, there is a little bit of internal competition when we talk about the two sites, because typically between the Edmonton, Alberta site and Orlando are usually the largest events we have in a calendar year, and they're certainly multi-day events, and that does require a lot more work and a lot more things behind the scenes. So I think the Orlando record, and I don't have the exact figure, but I think was set this year was just north of 17,000. Yeah, global. Yep. I mean, registered bidders from across the globe. So of course we're always setting that site. I mean, we've come close a couple of times for just on the GTV amount, getting close to what they do down there, but we never expected that we were going to shatter a record in excess of 17,000 registered bidders, which we did. And I'll just use the word, we actually didn't shatter it, we crushed it. So all said and done, through the Edmonton event, the bidder registration was 23,586, and I was the 86th, actually. So I registered for the sale myself, Matt, just to help push the number.
just to push the number. Talk about pricing, right? Talk about, what sectors, what did you see there? Western Canada better than anybody else. What surprised you? What was in line with your expectations? Tell us a little bit. Was it oil and gas? Was it forestry? Talk a little bit. Give us some insights there.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, before COVID took hold, the one thing that this market ebbs and flows with is the oil and gas sector, and we were already early in the throes of a downturn in the price of oil globally, which has a huge effect on infrastructure, market spend here in Western Canada. So we were anticipating we were going to have not a struggle, but we were expecting in certain categories, asset categories, that there was going to be some pricing pressure. And primarily the one that we were blessed with the most is heavy oil field transportation assets. So for those of you that don't understand maybe what that means, is if you have a drilling rig that you're going out into the field to drill for oil, you need to have certain heavy spec transport trucks and trailers to pack up that drilling rig and get it out there and set it up so it can go to work. And then when a job is done, they tear it down, they load it back up, and they go on to the next site. So as the drilling and oil and gas exploration market has really gone into the tank in this part of the world, companies that are solely focused in that industry have all of these assets that are absolutely, for lack of a better word, you can't go do another job with them. They're specifically built to do one thing and one thing only. Like a highway transport truck, you can hook it on to many different things and go do many different jobs. And when you have a bed truck, as they say, that sets up a drilling rig, it's only built to do one thing. So fortunately, we were blessed with two very large dispersal packages. One was an underwritten deal and one was a straight commission deal coming into the April event. So we were, as they say, up to our neck in it. And the pricing in that category turned out as expected. I mean, we count on Texas, we count on Oklahoma, some southern states where the same equipment is put to work every day, or overseas. We do see a lot of this type of equipment go to the Middle East from time to time. But outside of that, you don't have a buying public in the rest of this country and most of the continent for these types of assets. So as the sale progressed, we actually got out of the gate first with these trucks and trailers. And as expected, the pricing was not strong. In most cases, it was a little bit lower than where we had predicted it. There's always in the beauty of a big package, there's always a surprise or two that helps pick the rest of it up, so to speak. So the first couple of days of the auction went pretty much as expected, so nobody was high-fiving. Day two, afternoon of day two, and then into day three and day four, we got heavily into, obviously, our construction assets, whether it was excavators, graders, dozers, and then certainly on the last day into the aggregate equipment, which is the crushing equipment. And nobody expected we would have the kind of response and certainly the results that washed out over the course of the next 3.5 days of that auction sale. It was much stronger than anticipated. And part of the surprise and the strength of that pricing was the support even in the provinces, i.e. Western Canada, where the market is not good right now. And then you add the COVID factor to that. It was crazy. And everybody was happy. Don't get me wrong, but it was just, we're kind of looking at each other like, is nobody reading the paper or watching TV? Because it seemed a little strange. But the one thing that I think we didn't really take into consideration at the time, and as you went back and went through some of the stats afterwards, not just necessarily talking about the crazy registration level as far as how many registered bidders we had, but when you go back and dissect where the watch listers or where the views were coming from leading up to the auction, and you put the global map up on a screen, like the blue dots from that heat map always are heavily concentrated in our own sort of sector or Western Canada, but the spread across North America in particular is something that I've not seen before. And just as a side note to that, I remember being in the building a couple of the days of the sale. Of course, there's nobody there other than the auctioneer selling it and the staff downstairs. But one of the days I was over there, one of the auctioneers who's been doing this a while come up and he says, I said, how did that go? And he said, the crazy thing was if you watch the screen and you just see how many multiple U.S. participants were bidding on assets that just was really outside of the norm, to see that high level, but just the things that they were bidding on, you wouldn't normally expect them to be bidding on. So to me, the big eye-opener that actually drove a lot of that price strength, particularly on the construction assets, was just the sheer volume of people that were online watching and clicking the button. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, I think we're seeing that. That's, obviously we focused, a lot of the marketing attention, when we go market Edmonton, we market to the, the global buyer base. And, we're seeing this with a lot of our sales, right? This global, buyer base that's, coming in online and participating. And so, I think that's, once again, we're getting to these points where we're seeing that solid pricing. We've done a couple of other webinars where we've showed how prices are holding steady in certain sectors. And I think that's been a big surprise for a lot of us, as we've gone through this period. Before we should turn it over to Ben to actually take a look at some of the detailed stats in our new data tool, any other final comments, Brian, on what you think we're going to see going forward, maybe as we head into the summer months and into the fall?
Well, we've got a heavy schedule ahead of us. As a matter of fact, we were just putting a couple of deals together this morning here for the upcoming event, both Edmonton and Grand Prairie. But the one thing that was pleasantly refreshing to see on the heels of the auction was just the bidder response, the seller response, and the market in general commenting on how strong the pricing was. But also, it made you feel good because the sentiment was, if anybody could pull this off, we knew you could because of your online presence, your digital strength, and just the simple fact that we truly do sell to a global audience, and there's not a competitor on the planet that can say that they can do that like we can. So it was a huge shot in the arm for sellers that are now wanting to participate in the next event. I think a lot of people were sitting back, and no doubt that's what helped drive some of the bidder registration, is people were scoping the scene to try to steal something, but at the same time they're paying attention because they want to know like what's really going to happen here. And the cool thing is, we proved a point, and we proved it in a big way, and that's just driving people back to our door, so to speak, for the sales that are upcoming here over the course of the next few months.
Great, thanks. And so let's do this. And for those of you out there, look, you can listen to Brian and I, chat like this on a monthly basis if you really like the sounds of our voices. But at the same time, we've actually developed some tools to give you some insights into what's going on. Not only as it pertains to the sales like Edmonton, but all the sales that allow you to go in and dig into the data for yourself and check things out. And a way that's probably, we've known in the past that people like to go onto the site and scrape the auction results and so forth, and we want to move away from that. So part of our efforts is we've been developing new data tools, new software tools to, hey, give you some of these insights and help you make some of these decisions. So Ben's just going to give you a quick snapshot of, some of the stuff you can see related to Edmonton in the new market trends tool that we announced a couple of months ago. So Ben, you wanna give a quick overview there?
Yeah, you bet, Matt. Thanks. This is sort of a quasi Brian Glenn on speed dial. Not quite, but pretty close. So, talking about Canada just for a moment. This is the interface for the RB Market Trends tool that is available through subscription. I want to talk first just around these price indices. We've had a few webinars where we've referenced our price indices, and this is a tool that enables our best ability for an apple-to-apple comparison of assets going through a auction. And what I've just done there, I was clicking on a few buttons, but I set it to Canada. I set it to our composite curve, and a composite curve in this case is basically looking at all of our assets going through all of our auctions in Canada. And it's registering data up until May 1st. So, this is pretty much hot off the press. The next update will occur. The May data will be loaded early June. So you're seeing this stuff really live. The first comment, just, correlating to what Brian was speaking to on pricing strength overall. And this is a tool that enables you to see that, right? So what this is showing here is it's saying that in the month of April, this current month, so, right in the middle of COVID, when you look at a year ago, the overall pricing for all assets is down on average 4%. So it's down a little bit, but it's pretty strong. You can drill down into understanding what's really driving that, right? So Brian referenced transportation. You can see we are seeing more weakness in transportation as Brian spoke. And, Brian was referencing some of the oil field sector assets in particular being soft. This is more of an aggregate view of transportation, speaking to some softness. We're seeing it. I think we would expect to see this transportation number probably go down a bit more in the next release when the May data goes in. I think that composite curve I just showed here before, I would expect this to start turning back up based on the strength we saw in Edmonton. So this is the first real view of what is going on in pricing at a high level. The other piece I want to talk about is just this ability to drive down into a specific auction geography. And so we were talking about Edmonton, biggest auction of the Canadian calendar. Let me show you what we can do. So this is picking up data from the last 30 days, every single channel that Richie has. It was updated this morning at 6 a.m., so it's hot off the press. And what you can do is you can specify the cut of data that you want. And so I'm going to pick Alberta. This is going to say, basically, it's going to tell me all the assets that were sold in Alberta in the last 30 days. Now, this is largely Edmonton. In this case, it's probably 95% Edmonton. And what you can quickly see that the comment about the global purchasing activity, this is the first piece you see. So these are the assets coming out of Alberta. This is where they went in the world. And where it's really dark blue, that's where the density is. So not surprising, we keep a lot of great assets in province. You see them being, carrying over into other parts of Canada. And then you see a whole lot going into the U.S., which is what Brian was referencing with that strong buying activity. You do see assets going global. Western Australia, China, India, Saudi Arabia. I don't know about this one, but Nigeria. There you go. But you really see that global buyer activity picking up assets and really supporting prices, which is phenomenal. The other piece of this puzzle is we show the price distribution for asset categories, drilling down into make model level of detail. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give the user as much visibility into price realization as we can, without giving so much information that you can make stock picks based on Ritchie Brothers activity. And so what we've done here is the first cut is categories, and I've cut it here by the number of assets sold. So again, largely Edmonton. We sold between 400 and 800 pickup trucks, a huge volume. Truck tractors, somewhere between 200 and 400. Winch tractors, and you can scroll down through this. It's just generating for a sec. You can scroll down and see these different categories of asset that we sold. Hydraulic excavators, dozers, boom trucks, reefer trucks. And in each case, you're getting a view as to what was the volume of assets sold, as well as what is the range of price. Now, at itself, this range of price is too high, right? I mean, we all know big variation in price between the brands, between the age, between the usage, between the attributes. And so what we enable you to do is start drilling down. So if you're, in this case, we're looking at pickup trucks. We can see that we sold between 100 and 200 Fords, GMCs, Chevrolet, Dodge. And you can do this cut. I picked pickup trucks at the top here, but you can do that for any one of these categories. And as you go down, so now I'm on, what am I on now? I'm on all. If I go into truck tractors as an example, the tool is dynamic. It picks up what you're clicking on. You go into here, I'm saying I want to look at truck tractors. It's going to cut all the data. Now I saw 50 to 100 Peterbilts, 50 to 100 Kenworths. And, I want to look at Peterbilt even more detail. I just want to look at the Peterbilt trucks that we sold in Edmonton. Here we go. The 389 class, we sold between 11 and 25. This is the range of pricing we saw. The median price is that price that's the midpoint. And so, when you got these large volume of assets going through our yards, that median price becomes a pretty good indicator of what's going on with the overall price of that asset as a group. And so here you see it's 43.5. You can go into other tabs in our tool here to see how that compares. And you get a pretty good idea of how strong is the pricing all the way down at the make model level. And this tool enables you to do it for essentially every make model that we sell. So it's a one-stop shop. It enables you to see the world, see where our assets are going, and is really meant to be, the equivalent of Brian Glenn on call. So with that, Matt, back to you.
Brian Glenn on speed dial. Maybe we'll get the marketing team to rename the tool. But anyway, that's it for today. That's a wrap for today. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ben. Just wanted to give everybody an update on what we saw in Edmonton. And as always, if you want access to tools like this, we offer the free monthly pricing report at Ritchie Bros Market Trends Report. And then these tools, you can find out more about them at rbasset-solutions.com. So everybody stay safe out there. And until the next installment, keep on keeping on. Thanks, everyone.